Hello. So there's been some recent updates to the Orchestra CLI. We're going to run through them, the new commands that have been added and what they do, and generally how they link together to make local development of pipelines a whole lot simpler. First of all, what are these new commands? Well, we always had validate, import, and run, but now there are some extra ones with pipeline-based things in them. So we have fetch pipelines, which is a way of getting a big JSON output of essentially all of your pipeline definitions. Pretty good if you want to start migrating or just store them somewhere if you've been doing it in Orchestra from before. Create pipeline, fairly similar to import, apart from we now no longer need to be running this in a Git context. So if you think of import as saying, well, I'm going to link up this Git file to this pipeline, create is using Orchestra storage to just put this YAML file into Orchestra storage as a new pipeline. Similarly, update pipeline and delete pipeline are there to finish the rest of the management uses of a pipeline. So you have your full create, update, delete kind of flow that you would expect with most things. Now, if you've not used the Orchestra CLI before, it's pretty easy to set up. You can just pip install it, or UV or whatever other Python package manager you use. Then all you're going to have to do is export your Orchestra API key into the environment. This can be found in your workspace settings down here. Apart from that, it's just a case of changing the base URL if you have another deployment, but mostly you're not going to need to do that. So on the left, you can see we have a Orchestra pipeline YAML, which is actually AI generated, so it's full of mostly placeholders. And on the right, we have our docs that we're going to step through each of the commands and kind of see what they do, so that ultimately you feel kind of the flow of developing and uploading and creating an Orchestra pipeline from your local environment. So just to start, if we run Orchestra validate, we can see that this is actually a valid pipeline. Huzzah! So this should upload, should create a pipeline for us in the UI that we can then see. So then moving on to create pipeline, we can see that we have a few options that we're expected to provide. So we have an alias, which is the unique name for a pipeline within a workspace, not the same as its display name. It's like a machine readable snake case format. We have the path to the pipeline YAML file we want to create with, and then we have the option to either publish or not publish a pipeline. If you've used the UI before in Orchestra, you'll know this is kind of like the difference between draft and not draft or production state. But it's kind of up to you whether you want to publish directly or just leave it in a draft state for now. But either way, let's run this and see what it creates. So it was successful and it's output a link to the pipeline for us. So let's open that and check it out. Excellent. So we can see our pipeline looks sort of as we'd expect. It runs Fivetran, then it runs DBT, nothing too fancy. But if we click into here, we can actually see that it doesn't really do much. We've got a few issues with obviously the dummy connection IDs. And just to prove this isn't like smoke and mirrors and some kind of magic, we can actually run the pipeline from the CLI as well. Though this obviously is not going to work with our fake credentials, but it just goes to show that you can, from your editor, create, run, delete, and ultimately manage Orchestra pipelines while you develop them, which is pretty cool. And there we go, it's failed, but at least it's given us an output of a link to the lineage so we can go and start debugging this. So perhaps we're going to want to update this pipeline with something a bit more realistic. So let's add a dbt source freshness command to our pipeline. Now, dbt commands in a dbt core task in Orchestra are semicolon delimited, so we can just set it like this. And then we're going to want the update pipeline command, which looks pretty much the same as the create pipeline command, as you'd expect, just with a different name. So again, we pass the alias, the path, and whether or not we want to publish, and just click update pipeline. Done. So reopening the pipeline link it gives us, we can click into the dbt task and see that our command has indeed been updated with our changes. Cool. but let's say I don't want this pipeline anymore. How can I get rid of it? Then fairly reasonably, we're going to want the delete pipeline command. And this doesn't take most of the other arguments because it's no longer interested in the file or whether you want to publish it or not. It just needs the alias because that's what it's going to go and delete. So if I was to run this, you can see that it's been deleted successfully. And if we were to refresh our orchestra pipeline, you can see that that has now been deleted. And finally, just for completeness, I'm going to show you orchestra fetch pipelines, which currently is just going to give me a JSON output of all pipelines my token has access to, which may not be the most useful in some of your workflows, but if you wanted to use this as context or kind of data to hand to an AI assistant or to run any sort of scripts or analysis locally, it's pretty useful to be able to dump it out straight away. So yeah, go and give the CLI a go, see how it works for you in your workflows and give us any feedback, but thanks for watching. Cheers.